Okay, tribe. Our next guest is all the way around the globe in Singapore. For the folks listening in Singapore, it's 5 a.m. in the morning, and for me, it's 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And he's on YouTube. There he is, all smiley and looking full of the joys of springtime, I guess. Justin Tang, welcome. My goodness, thanks for getting up early for me. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's such an honor, such a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, honestly, folks, we've been trying this for a while with this massive time difference between where I am in Georgia and where Justin is on the other side of the world in Singapore. Time difference was hard and I had a bunch on the go. But anyway, here we are. It's 2023, and now we get to feature you and feature a concept. You grabbed my attention when we emailed each other. And that's playing from a state of rest. But before we get to that, because I think there's a lot to be learned, I want you to explain to our global audience a little bit about you. Tell us your history, your brief bio, if you will, and how you came to where you currently are.
So I started golf at the relatively late age of 19, in about 98,
Mm.
99. And I started my journey in the golfing machine in the year 2000 when I tried to make sense of the game of golf.
Yeah.
It is completely illogical for most of us. And for the most part, I could never grasp what one instructor was saying versus what another was saying in the same copy of that month's Golf Digest.
Mm-hmm.
So in the year 2000, I actually dislocated my shoulder playing rugby. And I spent some time reading a lot more golf magazines. And I came across this advertisement that featured my now friend, Bobby Schaefer.
Mm-hmm.
It was titled Ultimate Power Golf Swing. And he talked about carrying the ball the lengths of 3 football fields. Who wouldn't want that?
Okay.
So I promptly ordered that VHS tape back in the day. And in the tape, he kept mentioning this person, Homer Kelly, and his book, The Golfing Machine. So I said, hey, let's just go right to the source so there's no interpretational errors.
Yeah.
I got the book. My sister sent it, brought it back from the US, the yellow book. I read it and I went, hey, this is not a golf book. This is more like a physics and geometry book.
Yeah. No
Set
kidding.
the book aside for a couple of months. Came back to it when I found the Golfing Machine forum, Chuck Evans, Lynn Blake Golf, and I started my quest again. And in 2005, after graduating from college, I went to the US, the West Coast, and I sought out any instructor that was willing to give me the time to explain to me what they thought about the golf swing.
Mm-hmm.
In 05, I came back. I was offered a job at my home club only because the instructor then was unceremoniously asked to leave.
Okay.
So there began my journey into teaching the game of golf. So for the early part, I got very good results, just simply teaching the tenets of the golfing machine and its associated patterns, Morad, stack and tilt, and to some extent later, some version of Medicus golf patterns, 5 simple keys, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So all of them were revolving around the various popular patterns espoused by Homer Kelly.
Yeah.
But I felt something was missing. And in 2011, I came to know of this gentleman, Kelvin Miyahira. He
Yes.
was the person that first pioneered the use of anatomy in a golf instruction, in the golf swing. So I was fortunate. I reached out to him. He took me under his wing from 2012 to 2017, which was when he was unfortunate. He unfortunately fell ill and retired from teaching the game of golf.
All right.
And 2020, everyone knew the entire world went into a lockdown.
Yeah.
That was the turning point in my life. I went, okay, I've got the technical part of the instruction of my instructional philosophy sorted. I've got the physical anatomy component sorted, but something was still missing. And that something was understanding how the mind worked. Now, in college, I always saw myself as eventually becoming a lecturer in psychology.
Oh, really?
But yeah,
Okay.
but unfortunately, my funds were wiped out in 2008 during the global financial crisis. So that basically put paid to my dream of going to the United Kingdom to study and be a
Right.
lecturer in psychology.
Mm.
So back to 2020, I started reading my old psychology books, and one day, just by almost magically, whatever I understood about psychology, suddenly I could see in my head how it attached itself to the game of golf, tournament golf.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been teaching that since, and I just feel that it's now a very complete system, and which led to the development of my performance Pentagon. So it's got technique, it's got skill, it's got fitness, it's got emotional control, and it's got strategic planning. So again, concepts that are not unfamiliar to our listeners here.
Yeah. Um, Performance Pentagon. I'm making notes over here. I think I think it's a very cool way about going about it, and the timing of us doing this podcast is almost ideal because you're in the new year, and if you're listening to this down the track some, it's 2023. Um, I've embarked for the first month, maybe month and a half, on really putting out material to our listeners because when you first reached out to me, as you know, you said, "Hey, Mark, I'm a very holistic instructor. I've listened to you. I'd like to get on and share." And so I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to as well." And so, but we hitting things from neuroscience to cardiovascular health. So I'm basically working on complete human beings who happen to
Exactly.
play good golf. And I love the way you say find the missing link. And so I think that's sort of the perfect segue to dive into the topic here of when you say playing from a place of rest. And I went back and looked at our communication and I saw this and I highlighted that and I made it in bold. And I had all these questions about what is rest. And folks, just so you know, when we got on before I hit record on this, I looked at Justin and I'm like, "Hey, welcome. Nice to see you. Um, I'm not sure what I'm going to ask you about this stuff." And then you started sort of explaining, and it was like someone just switched on the light for me. So switch on the light for the listener, the viewer now, and just paint the overall concept, and then we
Sure.
drill down from there. So playing from a place of rest, off you go.
Sure. Maybe I should just share how powerful this concept is.
Please, yeah.
I started working with one of my players who's now on the Corn Ferry tour last year. He didn't make a Q school for the last two attempts.
Mm-hmm.
So over 12 months, we drilled really hard, 90% of the time on this concept of rest. Third attempt at Corn Ferry tour Q school, he finished sixth. Now he's got full status.
So what's his
So
name?
that's how power Jared Sawada.
Yeah, okay, right. We'll look out for him.
So that's how powerful this concept is.
Mm-hmm.
So and as I share my story with working with Jared, you will see that technique most often is blamed by tour professionals for being the missing link. Now,
Yeah.
when you see a tour pro miss a shot on TV, the first thing he does after swearing is to make a practice swing,
Yeah.
as though the swing that was blasting 300-yard drives suddenly melted down on this particular shot. No, the swing didn't break down because the swing motion is like a habit. Habits die hard,
Mm-hmm.
right? What broke down was the stories he told himself, the mental processes that was going in. In other words, before he pulled the trigger, there was some sort of internal conflict within him. So he wasn't at a state of rest. Now,
Gotcha.
to understand this very abstract concept, think about the time when you shot your best round. Interview Jim Furyk when he shot 58, 59. in 2 separate PGA Tour events. He's not going to tell you, hey, that 10 swing thoughts that I had before I hit each shot worked fantastic. He's not going to tell you, hey, that downswing move that I had worked fantastic.
Yeah.
You invariably would say, you know what? I can't really remember what I was doing. I was just getting out of my own way, or I was thinking about something else other than the game of golf. In other words, you were playing golf as though you were signing your name, you were reverse parking, or driving down the road.
Yeah.
You were in a state of rest where there was no conflict. And I find that the number one source of conflict in most players' game is my technique. There's something wrong with my technique.
So true.
This is what
yeah.
this is what I call the skill technique conundrum. And we can go back to the performance pentagon to understand this. I know there's a very roundabout way of understanding, but just bear with me.
All right.
Now, when you think there's a technical issue, your mind is going to be stayed on it all the time, whether you're aware of it or not. But think about this: blue chip companies, they don't, when they try to progress, they always do SWOT analysis. They look at their strengths, their weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and they kind of adjust their pentagon to progress forward. I find that a lot of players, they don't look at their skill. Do I have the necessary skill to play off tight lives? This course is all about tight lives. Do I have a flop shot? Am I actually playing a bunker shot in the optimal way? So these are skills.
Mm-hmm.
Fitness. Oh, I didn't realize that my legs are giving way always on round threes and round four. So that's a fitness issue. Emotional management. I can't control my emotions. Well, that's because you don't know how emotions are made. Strategic planning. I'm always short-sighted. So instead of just making a technique the fall guy, what about looking at the other four aspects of the performance pentagon?
Yeah.
Now let's zoom in on emotions. A lot of players don't understand how emotions are made. And invariably, they will tell me, oh, coach, I am really angry. Hey, hang on. That's subjective language because and personification.
Mm-hmm.
You just said, I am angry. Hang on. You are not angry. You are Jacob Lee. You are not angry. Your name, you are Jacob Lee. That's personification. So if you personify anger, then you're not able to control anger. You duff your shot on 15, it's going to carry on to 16, 17, and 18 because you just said, I am angry. You can't separate yourself from it. But if you say, I'm Jacob Lee, I just duffed the shot, I hit my chip shot 1 inch behind the ball only went 5 feet. I feel angry, but hey, I'm a professional. That's not me. Let's just right the ship. Let's just be a bit more aware of the lies from now on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was no subjective language. It was all objective. The brain can use that information to make things better the next shot and the next hole. More importantly, your brain waves were not elevated. Now, when you feel emotions that are triggered in the mind, and you feel certain sensations in your body, that's your cultural interpretation. You start getting tense, for a lack of better term.
Okay.
And what happens? It stays with you. Hey, Mark, that guy said something bad about you. He called you names. Your brain automatically goes back into your storehouse of bad calling you names, and it actually predicts what you should feel at this very moment when Justin Tang is gossiping to you about what someone purportedly said about you. And then it starts to extrapolate. So the brain is a predicting and extrapolating machine. In the past, the concept of the brain as espoused by Dr. Paul MacLean was that we are a triune brain. We are a victim of our circumstances. We react. We cannot help but react or respond to external stimuli.
Yeah.
The neuroscientist Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett has shown that this is not correct. She has said in her writings how emotions are made. That emotions are basically made by your brain gathering information from the past and then extrapolating it. So the whole concept of being at rest is, I tell my players, let me go to your past, let me understand your precedents, your storehouse of memories, whether right or wrong. Let me change them. You'll be a changed person. So, for example, I'm going to use some tour players. You may or may not recognize them. They've won all the other majors except the Masters.
All right.
Now, if this guy clearly has the skill to win the Grand Slam, but he can't.
Are you talking about Rory?
I'm not saying anything, not naming names.
His name rhymes.
Clearly,
his name rhymes with McElroy, right? Okay,
you
go.
see, right? Clearly, this person has the skill, the technique, the physical ability, the strategic know-how to win the Grand Slam, but he can't. But from our perspective, the only thing that we can see is his swing, his reactions. We can't really tap into the stories that he's telling himself. Yep. On the 18th hole, or let's call it the 54th hole. We don't know. He might be in the lead, but he could be telling himself stories, whether he realizes this or not. Again, the brain does things that sometimes we are not conscious of.
Yeah.
Storehouse of memory. The brain remembers the past. Hey, dude, remember how you hooked your drive on number one, for example?
Yeah.
I can't even remember the details. Now, if those things are not addressed, it will come back to haunt. Remember, the brain also is interested in, the brain's not interested in how beautiful our golf swing is. It's only interested in helping us survive. Therefore, it will highlight all these negative events in our lives only to protect us. Hey, remember the time that the lion ran after you? So anytime you hear something that vaguely resembles the roar of a lion, the hair on the hair on the back of your neck is going to stand. Your brain again predicts and tells you, hey, I think this is how you should be feeling. Your heart should be pumping because I think a lion's out there. Your legs are ready to go. Let's run. And that's what happens on a golf course.
I just want to acknowledge something, because your knowledge. Look, I've looked through all of your information and your social media, and the golf instructional stuff you do is tremendous, and your knowledge of the golf swing, and like anyone who's learned golf machine and stuff, you're clearly savvy in pretty in-depth technique stuff. But I find it so interesting and so refreshing how you would know all of that stuff and then come to share with me that the missing link is understanding the storehouse of memories. And if one can manage this, I guess I'm probably using the wrong term, then you're going to put yourself in the place to play better. So I'm guessing long-winded to get to this, and then I want you to describe further. I'm thinking tournament golfer here, but this is something that's applicable to golfers of any skill level.
Okay.
Am I correct?
Sure. Yeah. So the mind plays a part in every aspect of my Pentagon. So let's go back to the 24 handicapper, the average golfer, if you will, the weekend warrior.
If I might, before you do that, I think the folks may have missed the Pentagon at the start of the conversation.
Okay.
So why don't you list the 5 cornerstones, and then we can go from there, please.
So the performance Pentagon is number 1, technique. Number 2, skill acquisition. Number 3, fitness. Number 4, emotional management. And number 5, strategic planning.
Got it. All right. So off you go.
So for our listeners, there is one non-negotiable in the golf swing. It is not impact. Now, if you look at all the positions in golf swing, call it P1 to 10. most golfers, including tour pros, can be spectrumed. What I mean by this, you look at P1, you look at every pro's grip, it's all different. P10, the finish, everything is different. In other words, there is a spectrum.
Yeah.
It can go from very strong to very weak. You can be aiming very left, very right. The commonality is all these guys can flat out play. They'll shoot 66 most of the time. The only thing that cannot be spectrum in the golf swing, in all these positions, is not impact. Again, impact's very different for all players. You got some whose arms are straight, some arms are bent, some more lateral bend. The only thing that cannot be spectrum is this, and this is the non-negotiable. It's where the club head makes contact with the ground in relation to the ball.
Okay, right.
So if this is the ball, most of the time for a standard shot, the club head is going to make contact somewhere in front of the ball. That is a non-negotiable. And when you make contact, the direction of that contact, if you will, is always somewhere towards the intended target.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you add face-to-path relationship, you get different curvatures. But that is the non-negotiable, and that's the first thing I teach most of my golfers who are, call it 5 handicap and up.
Well, I would say I'm interested just to get your take, because what you say there, I've never heard someone describe the spectrum of things from P1 to 10, which is genius and in its simplicity. But I would even contend then that even with some sort of beginning golfer, where the club and the ball meet, or where the club and the ground interact, the base of the swing arc, that's equally as important to them. And if people just had to learn that, then they'd be well on their way, at least to getting the ball elevated and going somewhat functionally. Yes?
Correct. Yes, you mentioned a great word, function. So for students that come to me for the first time, I never look at their form. I always address the function first. So you could come to me standing too close to the ball with too weak a grip. I'm not going to change that yet. I'm going to say, hey, let's see where your club lands in relation to the ground. They go like, what's that? And I'll make some demonstrations. This, land the club somewhere in front of the ball. They're like, doesn't make sense. I said, hey, it makes sense because it's like a hit and run accident. To actually land the club in front of the ball, you got to hit the ball first. You get ball, then ground contact. Oh, they go, okay. And they start doing it. And when they do that, when you actually land the club head in front of the ball, you're gonna require shaft lean. The sweet spot of the club is gonna touch the ball. So we kill many birds with one stone. So we work on the cause and we get all the desired effects for free. And it's not complicated. I tell them, hey, look, this is like you and me going to the beach, to the park, taking a stick and just flicking away at leaves on the ground. They go, like, yeah, that's a fair statement. They start doing that, the ball starts flying, and then the ball starts flying because the brain has now self-organized your motor movement. We have given the brain a very, very clear task. Just make a sound with the club, make the sound go somewhere towards the target, and the magic of the brain takes over. Now, Mark, I've got the buy-in from the student. Now he's hitting the ball, nice and crisp. Anything else I say, he's going to say, okay, let's work on it. If I say, hey, let's change the grip because I look at your body assessment, I look at the length of your limbs in relation to the other body part, to your height. I think I would recommend this particular takeaway, this particular backswing, this particular top of the position. Anything else I say, he's going to buy in because now his swing is function. But if you work on the form before function, you might not get that buy-in.
Yeah, so true. So now, well, look, what you say is so sensible, but now I want to get it back to the missing link.
Yeah.
But I guess then you're working with a student to say, okay, that's technique, and then there's skill acquisition we've got to deal with. So some of the rest, I'm assuming, or playing from that position of rest, is knowing that your 5 pillars, your 5 cornerstones of your performance pentagon are functional, right?
Correct. So technique, right? Again, we go back to if your swing is functional, and I didn't put you in a preconceived idea of what I think a golf swing should look like, but I'll allow you to swing according to your DNA, there will not be any conflict. Now, for example, our friend Mike Adams and Terry Rouse, they came up with left post, center post, right post. If you're a right post guy and I make you go left post, there will be conflict. And I've spoken to tour players on this. They're like, dude, my guy wanted me to do this, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
That is conflict.
Yeah,
so if you swing in a pattern or a method that's not congruent with your DNA, there will be conflict. Now, skill. If you don't have the required skill to play, say, Augusta, you don't have that high shot, there will be conflict. You know it. All your shots are low fades, you're going to be in trouble. This is why Lee Trevino never won at Augusta. But he was cognizant of the fact. And credit to him, he never tried to change his pattern to hit and high draw. Then fitness. You might not know it, but you will feel it. Again, round 3, round 4, your legs start going soft. Too much candy, too much chips, too much sugary soda. That's a problem.
Round 3 or 4. For a lot of the folks perhaps listening to this, that's by about the 15th hole of the day that their legs are giving way. Yes.
Exactly. And fitness doesn't need to be, oh, I gotta go to the gym, high intensity training every day. It doesn't even need to be that complicated. It's about, going to a half squat position, hands free, and just see how long you can stay there. Okay, today I can only stay there for 10 seconds. Cool.
Yeah.
Let's increase that to 30 seconds, 50 seconds. Before you know it, it's 3 minutes. Then you start building up lactic acid tolerance. And you'd be surprised how much that carries over to your game of golf. And you know what? Sometimes just leave the buggy in the clubhouse. Just take a walk with your bag.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea. Good for your health too.
Yeah, well, you talk about that too. We just featured someone on the podcast too, where it was just talking about he had 3 ideas to. He called it his 3. I can't remember the exact term, but it was like eating 3 meals a day, drinking 3 liters of water a day, and 3 workouts per week. And he said,
not difficult.
And let the workouts be movement deals like squatting and lifting and things you would do every day, because most of us are living this lifestyle where we're not in that place, and then we're expecting to try and swing a golf club at speed consistently off uneven lies. I don't have to go on. It's when you package it like that, it seems next to impossible, and then you won't be playing from a place of rest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because there will be conflict, right, when you're tired. Just look at kids when they're tired. Their conflict is expressed. They start crying.
Yeah.
That's your body telling you, I'm not comfortable. And then the last pillar, strategic planning. If you don't know how to play a golf course, there will be conflict. You stand over the shot. Like, do I use a 6? Do I use a 5 because I'm in between clubs? That's conflict there. So tournament players, how I work with them is I always introduce them to this concept of probabilistic thinking. Now, people associate losing with pain. I made a bogey. It sucks. I missed the cut. Doesn't feel great. But there is a particular group of people in the world we live in who lose all the time, yet they revel in it. They revel in it. When they lose money, they are actually happy. They are smiling like me. Who are these? Who are these people?
Day traders, folks who work in the stock market, huh?
Exactly. Day traders and gamblers.
Yeah,
Why?
true. Okay, right. Yeah.
Gamblers. So let's say you and I, we go to Vegas and $5 each mark. Let's try 1 billion payout. We put the $5 inside. We pull the jackpot arm. Nothing happens. Am I going to berate myself? I'm such a bad player. I'm not a good son. I'm not a good father. Like Mark, see the jackpot. I didn't cash out. No one's going to say that. And if I actually said that to you, you'd be thinking there's something wrong up there. This guy, one French fry short of a happy meal.
So
but that goes on all the time in tournament golf. Miss a 4-foot putt, and they start calling themselves names. They start throwing golf clubs. They break golf clubs. Yes, I get there's frustration involved in tournament golf, but it's usually down to the lack of not accepting probabilities. Now, when I put that $5 coin into the slot machine, I accepted the probabilities that I'm not going to win. When I buy a lotto ticket, the very act of buying that lotto ticket means that I have accepted that there's a very, very tiny chance that I will strike $100 billion, for example.
Yeah.
And once I accept that, I can go to the counter, hey, give me a Powerball ticket. That's the only way that happens. If I didn't accept that risk, I would never be able to pull out that $5 to put in a slot machine or buy a Powerball ticket. However, in the game of golf, for example, over a 3-foot putt, 99% of the time you're going to make the 1% of the time you won't. I'm not sure if most players accept the risk of that. They just go up and make the putt. So let's say that this 1% of the time, this 1 out of 100, you miss the putt. You get angry, you get all upset because that one putt made you miss the cut. You start berating yourself. You start moralizing. You start moralizing the whole process. You link one unrelated event to your self-image. That's gonna put a scar in your psyche. Yeah. Because you did not play golf like you gamble, like one would gamble. So when I explain this to my players, I go like, hey, you know what? What's the probability of you pulling this shot? We take out the PGA Tour average. Are we within the PGA Tour average? Say 66%. We miss one. This is the 1/3 that we were meant to miss. Oh yeah, coach. Thanks for reminding me. In a state of rest. But if he focuses, I should have gotten it 3 feet. You dumbo. Not in a state of rest, internal conflict. They're finished. So that, let's say that happens on hole 14. Now, his brain waves are elevated. Now he's in a state of internal conflict, in a state of turmoil. He says, I need to focus. Coach, I'm going to grind for the next 3 holes. Guess what? Magic does not happen. It's a car crash waiting to happen. So the mental game in golf is very different from the mental game in baseball, swimming, running, soccer. Because in the other sports, someone's trying to break your legs, there is a pain involved. There is no pain in the game of golf. In the other sports, the more goals I score, I'm going to win. The more free throws I make, I'm going to win. In golf, it's the opposite. The less strokes you make, you're going to win. It's a totally different mindset. Now, when you say, I'm going to bring I'm going to grind, now what you're saying is, let me bring myself into the picture now. Now, I'm going to grind when I drive home. Does that make sense, Mark? I'm going to drive to the airport shortly. I'm going to grind my way to the airport. Again, this guy, there's something loose up there. No one does that. But in the game of golf, in tournament play, everyone wants to grind. And it just makes things worse.
I feel like
you bring yourself into play.
I feel like I'm speaking to Bruce Lee, yeah, to be honest with you. I mean, your level of calm and your wisdom is infectious, and everything you're saying to me, I'm going, yeah, that's sensible. And then I'm like, so why don't I do it? I guess that's my follow-up question, because I'm sure that I'm what I just said to you there. Everyone who thinks about it for a second, they're like, yeah, why aren't I doing this? And I know, because I oftentimes say it, that, and I'm saying this as a golf teacher, fixing the golf swing is kind of the intellectually lazy way of doing it, because you can, like you say, there's the spectrum of positions. There are always things that can be tidied up, but it's I guess I'm getting to this is kind of hard to work on. So what are the action points then? Do you get where I'm going here?
Yeah, I do. A lot of these things cannot be seen.
Yeah.
And teaching golf is easy only because we can see the golf swing.
Yeah.
It's more difficult to kind of climb into a player's head. You need to build a relationship with the player. So I don't believe in like, hey, I heard you did work with this guy. Can you work with me? I don't do that kind of work. It's got to be a relationship. Let's build a relationship, player. Let me understand you as a person. Because Butch Harmon once said, we're not teaching golfers, we're teaching people. I need to understand you as a person.
Yeah.
And I find that I'm increasingly finding that there is a trend towards a holistic teaching where it's not just like positions in a golf swing.
Yeah.
You're familiar with soccer coming from South Africa. It's almost like these days a golf coach is like a player manager. It's not like, oh, how much do you know about the golf swing? How much do you know about fitness? It's kind of like, hey, I need a one-stop shop. And that's what tour players are telling me. Hey, it's refreshing to tell you because it's consistent. All the message is very consistent all the way from your views on fitness, to technique, to skill, to strategic planning, and then emotional management. Everything is very congruent coming from the same person. So I'm
Yeah.
not saying that I'm a specialist in one area. Certainly, if the player is injured, I'm not a physician. I will direct them to someone who is better qualified. But do I have a handle on the various energy systems in the body? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Action points. Sorry. Before action points, you talk about stuff like why isn't this taught? Because, or rather, why is this not more known? Because not many people teach the mind. People teach the mind exclusive to golf, and then they teach golf exclusive to the mind.
Yeah.
I think that there must be an overlap because we're not teaching a robot how to swing the golf club. We are teaching a person to play golf. And to teach a person, you need to get into their mind, how they perceive things. For example, I use three alphabets, IFM. Intentions create forces on the golf club expressed in the motion of the golf swing. So sometimes, without even looking at a person's TrackMan data, force plate numbers, or hack motion data, you kind of know like this guy is trying to do this. Oh, and if
Um,
I can just change that intention, I oftentimes find that I can change the forces that this person puts on the golf swing. That's then expressed in the motion of their golf swing. For a very easy example would be they're trying to lift the ball. They're going to finish like that. Hey, you know what? It's not about lifting. Let's get the sweet spot under the ball. Oh, okay. The body starts changing. The body is miraculous. The mind actually is miraculous. It's got the ability to self-organize according to the task you give it.
I need you because, look, for the folks watching on YouTube, it's not often that I fill a page. That's all the notes I'm making from this
Oh,
conversation with you. I need you,
thanks, man.
the IFM, intentions
Yeah.
create forces on the golf club, and the end of that was
Expressed in the motion of the golf swing.
expressed in the motion of the golf swing. You know what? I'm just writing it. I think that is almost. It's kind of like the Holy Grail. If I wanted to think about everything you've taught us, me over here, I think that sort of essentially summarizes the whole thing because the intentions do begin within the mind, and then they work into the hands and the force you put on the club. And then, if like you're right, if I'm trying to do high, I'm going to tilt high. If I'm trying to do low,
Yeah.
and so it's getting the mind to a place where it is. I dare say the use of the word focus is not correct enough, but that's the best word I can find. It's the
Yeah.
focus,
I guess.
but again, being in this place of rest and there's no internal conflict on the go.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, there is no conflicting messages in the head.
Yeah,
You're just playing like you are. You basically are. What do I mean by you are? I like to use this term, I is or I am. Like I am here right now. I'm not time traveling. A lot of players. So you talk about actionable points. Let's have two. Okay.
okay.
Don't time travel.
I
Time
love
traveling means I'm thinking of hole 15. I'm thinking of hole 17 and 18, birdieable holes. Hey, but hang on, my body is in hole 16 on the tee box, hole 16. As I'm thinking about 15, 17, and 18, I didn't realize the teeing area on hole 16 is a bit slanted. I didn't adjust my ball position. I hit it fat. Now the ball is in the hazard. I've incurred a double bogey. So I've got a bigger problem now because I was time traveling.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of strategies that I teach players to stop time traveling. Another actionable point for our listeners to use would be use objective language instead of subjective language. Don't say things like, "Oh, the golf course. This is a really tough golf course." What does that mean? Tough? Hey, Rory just shot a 61 in the morning. What do you mean tough? It wasn't tough for him. What you should say is, this is a fairly long golf course. Fairways are narrow. Okay, that's it. Your brain can work with that. Long, narrow, which means you got to be smart off the tee. That's actionable. So change the language you use. Don't use say things like angry, bad, good. Doesn't mean anything to the brain. You hit a bad shot, a slice, for example. Don't say, "Oh, bad shot again." Say, "That shot started 5 yards left of my intended start line and it curved 10 yards to the right." Emotions are not evoked.
Yeah,
Instead of
factual.
"You fool."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of fools, analyze the stuff that you say to yourself. If you were calling your playing partner a fool, you'll be the only ball in your flight in short time.
Yeah.
So examine the language that you use on yourself. So these are I feel very actionable points that one can use just to make your game better. Another actionable point would be chucking the practice swing on the practice range. I see too many people that go like, "Let's stick 2 practice swings." Hey, hang on, just doesn't feel right. Let's stick 3. Now, Mark, I'm not sure if you caught the recently concluded World Cup in Qatar.
Yes.
Did you see Lionel Messi say, "Hang on, boys, I'm going to practice this cross, just 2 more shots"? Okay, you can restart play, referee. Have you seen that? And when Messi went up for the head, "Hey, hang on, that cross wasn't right. I feel I didn't get enough neck extension. Can we try that again?" Doesn't happen in most other sports. But in golf, we start using this practice swing as though the perfect practice swing would create the perfect shot. I would encourage our listeners just to play 9 holes without any practice swings. That is really pure subconscious golf. Because all the practice you've done is encoded in the mind. Your brain assesses the environment, sees the situation. It goes, okay, there's all these mathematical calculations that it makes. It goes, okay, I got to do this. And just let it act out what you've already encoded into the body. Then why else do all that practice? Why else spend all those hours at the range, on the short game facility?
Yeah, so true.
It's like driving. It's like driving. You got to free up the subconscious, and the subconscious loves it when you free it up, when you don't second guess, when you don't say, "Hey, I'm approaching this bend. How left do I need to turn?" Play golf like you're driving. Every event is different.
Wow.
You'd be surprised. A lot of my members start playing better. They are freed from the shackles of practice swing prison.
Yeah.
I've got so much to say about practice swings. They don't work. So a lot of golfers, when they make the practice swing, invariably they tell me, "Hey, coach, that swing felt great. See that? See that on my iPhone looks great." And then we've got a divide. The practice swing looks like this, actual swing looks like that.
Yeah.
So what went wrong there? The intentions went wrong. When they were making a practice swing, all they were trying to do is feel the weight of the club in a circular motion around the body. ball's there. Let's kill this. That's why you've got a huge gap.
Mm.
So another very actionable point that our users, our listeners can make at the range is go make a couple of practice swings and feel the speed through the ball, the tension level. You'll find that actually tension level, I think it's like 10, 2 out of 10, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is no urge to do something to the ball, that lack of urge. Now, when you go hit the ball, examine, hey, was I trying to hit the ball? If there was, then there is a divide. The closer your practice swing feels like to the actual swing, your handicap's going to go down because you didn't add yourself to the mix. You allowed the program to run.
Yeah.
You did not corrupt the neural signal from the brain to all the muscles that are involved in executing the golf swing. You did not have an internal focus, according to Dr. Gabriel Wolf.
Yeah.
You did not talk to your body parts. You did not say, hey, I need to tighten the left pectoral muscle on the way down because that keeps the number 4 accumulator intact. You didn't say any of that. Now, your number 4 accumulator may or may not be in place, but that's something else for another day.
Yeah, exactly.
Play golf. Play golf unconsciously from a state of rest. That's what I'm saying.
Wow, it's amazing to me how a statement like as simple as playing from a state of rest. I mean, you have unpacked and uncovered just a minefield of stuff. I mean, a mine of information here, and it's been also helpful. Um, okay, here's my sort of parting shot. So there are obviously very few instructors like you of your ilk. So if folks want to get more, it's not like they can just fly across the world to Singapore. I guess they can, but is there a way they can reach out to you? Is there books, lessons, what social media? Where do folks go to find some more from you?
Okay, now here's a surprising thing. The guy that I work with on the Corn Ferry, Jared, I've never met him in person, never physically. So a lot of these things we do basically via FaceTime.
Oh,
Hey,
really?
coach, look at my swing. Okay, let's work on it. But most of the time, it's understanding him as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And I can be found on Instagram at Elite Golf Swing. You can DM me. That's the best way to get hold of me. I'm working on my website at the moment.
I think
But yeah, happy to have a chat with anyone, man.
you need to change that from elite golf swing to elite golf mind, because serious, really. I mean, I'm not lying. I never take notes. I've got a page full, and I ran out of everything you were saying because I was just wanting to organize this all because it's my job now to go and put this out in the best light. And I was like, wow. I was listening to you like a fan, and I was like, yes, and I write, and I'm wow with it, and I didn't want to miss stuff. So that was tremendous. And I would advocate everyone listening to this or watching it that you play and hit pause and make a note or two and play and hit pause so that when you go out, you can go and, get to a place of rest, but get those 5 um, performance pentagon, those pillars, get them in order. Um, Justin, tremendous. I'm sad that it took us long to connect, but I'm glad that it happened, and I'm glad it happened in the beginning of 23 because I feel like you've just helped a lot of people to go and find that place and go and find their best golf. So I thank you for waking up early and joining us.
Thank you very much, Mark, for having me on the show.